Hello everybody, Toastbomb here today, and wow, I was surprised about this. They showed a teaser trailer for Halo 5. I was not expecting that at all out of E3. A lot of people said when the hand popped out, they're like, oh man, boom, that's it, right there, that's Master Chief's hand. But I didn't even realize until the helmet blew off that that was actually him, because I was just, again, not even expecting it at all. Now, obviously, this is just a CG trailer. We don't get any information out of it other than that it's going to be released in 2014, but they did, during the press conference, just give us two little details. First of all, game's going to be running at 60 frames a second. Now, that is awesome. That is huge. That's something that people have been asking for so long for Halo to have, and now we're going to be getting it, so that's really exciting. And then also they announced that they will have dedicated servers for multiplayer, and that is also a huge thing for a console game. Now before we do get into this, I just want to say I'm not trying to be the whole negative person that's just like totally being negative about everything that's being released about the game or whatever, but you know, we don't have a lot of information about this game, so there's room, obviously, for speculation, and we can look at the good side, we can look at the bad side of all these things, and how they could end up playing out. So, first of all, let's just look at the bad side of some of this stuff. Now, for 60 frames, there's really no bad side, actually, about that. That's just all good. Like, I guess the only bad side can maybe be like, oh, the visuals will be a little less good because it's 60 frames and not 30. They could push the hardware a little more if it's 30, but really, 60 frames is going to make everything crispier, response snappier, all that stuff's going to be good, and it actually allows for a higher level of play because you're getting a lot more information about what is happening in the game. You might not think it would be that big of a deal, but it actually does allow for more accurate shooting and all that stuff at high levels. That's why Counter-Strike players and PC competitive players, even if they have hardware that's just going to destroy the game, like Counter-Strike 1.6, they still have hardware that's just going to destroy that game. Like, obviously, it's like 15 years old at this point. But they still turn the graphics settings down all the way to the bottom to max out the frame rate and everything, because every single frame helps. That's more information that you're getting about the game. Obviously, as that goes up, it's like diminishing returns on what you're actually getting. But going from 30 to 60 is actually a significant jump, so that's really awesome. Now the second thing, dedicated servers. Now this is also awesome, but there are some things that could be a little bit disappointing about it. If we look at the history of dedicated servers on console games, we can look at Gears of War 3, and they did it pretty good, but not exactly perfect, and some people had a lot of complaints, and they didn't like the way Epic handled it, because dedicated servers cost a lot of money. You might not think about the cost of that stuff, but trust me, it does cost a lot. And the only way that Epic could make Gears of War 3 have dedicated servers practically without like completely losing a ton of money was by only allowing people to use dedicated servers that have bought the most recent DLC. So this guarantees that more people will buy the DLC just for the servers, so they get a little bit of money that way. And also, it can sort of split the player base. The people who are not willing to pay that money won't be able to access those servers, so they don't have to pay for as many. Now, obviously, a lot of people weren't very happy about that because they're like, well, I paid for the game. You said I would get dedicated servers. Why don't I have dedicated servers? Now I have to play in this peer-to-peer environment that is not as good as a dedicated server. So that is a concern as well, where they might like block off some users from being able to play on the dedicated servers. Now obviously people could go back and forth, like I could play with a guy who doesn't have the DLC, obviously not on the DLC maps, but I could play on the non-dedicated server area. It's not completely splitting the user base, but it does cause some complications and some frustrations within the community that could be a concern in Halo 5. Assuming this game is actually called Halo 5, but that's probably a pretty safe assumption. And then the second thing about the dedicated servers is it's not just like this amazing godlike thing. It's become this crazy thing that's just like looked up to, this just holding it on a pedestal sort of thing, and everyone's like, oh, dedicated servers, that's heaven, I cannot wait, that is amazing. And it's really not that great. Like, sure, those servers aren't going to have to be running a game also. Those calculations are only going to be on that system. It's going to be more optimized for running those calculations. The internet connection there is going to be better. So it's going to be a more quality experience overall, but it's not perfect. You're still going to be getting bloodshots. That stuff is still being predicted on the server side. So that stuff isn't necessarily going to be perfect. Counter-Strike, you still get shots where it's like, I totally hit that guy and it did not register. So that stuff's still going to happen. Just keep that in mind, because a lot of people kind of lose that, and they think like, oh, it's just like going to be playing on LAN, right? And it's like, not really. It's still the internet. It's still not perfect, but it is better. So just keep that in mind for the future. Now, as far as the positive stuff, this stuff just seems really cool. I mean, obviously we didn't see what Halo 5 has in it, like what they're really going to be pushing this hardware to do, what the features are, but you could imagine and extrapolate some of the ideas that were coming out of the other demos, stuff like the Forza thing, where you're racing, and when you're racing, it records and sort of understands your behavior in racing, and then that gets put into the cloud, and then when you're racing, you're actually not racing ghosts of other people, but the AI in that car for that race is using behaviors from players that have been recorded around the world in order to make it act like an actual person and make mistakes like an actual person. So that's really interesting and makes it so that that is going to be much more rewarding. And then also there was other things about how you can offload some of the stuff onto the cloud, how you can connect, do all this really interesting stuff, and you could sort of start to see how they could start to implement this stuff into a Halo game. Also, just the hardware power in general. We saw with that Spark game where there was all this terraforming stuff, really interesting stuff going on there. If they could open that sort of stuff where you could change like weather effects, basically you just have this completely flat grass area or something and you could just totally just completely make mountains as you wish, that could be amazing with Halo as well. That would totally transform Forge completely and would basically give you 100% level editor like you would get in something like a Counter-Strike or Unreal Tournament that we've had in the past for like PC games, where you could just create anything because you just have basically the dev tools at your hands. We could start to see that in Forge, which would be amazing. So there's some really cool, interesting stuff that we could see down the line with Halo 4. But there's also some stuff that you gotta be kind of a little skeptical about and kind of wonder, like, okay, how are they gonna take this? You can't just only look at the positive stuff. You gotta be a little skeptical sometimes. So anyways, that'll be it for this one. If you liked it, you can leave a like or a comment, or you could subscribe because I post new Halo videos every day. I'm really excited to see more about this. You know, who knows when we actually will see anything about it. Probably be a little while, I suspect, but nevertheless, I'm still very excited about it. So anyways, that'll be it for this one. See you tomorrow. Bye.